I'd say that. I think a lot of Saudis now look at themselves as international citizens in a way. As Saudi is opening up more and more to the world, I definitely feel that especially young people, with the help of technology, obviously, are more connected with what's happening in Saudi, but also abroad. And I would also say, and that goes back to a point that Lucien, you've mentioned, a lot of Saudis, young Saudis, are starting to travel around the country on weekends to explore the country. And it's actually something that's been happening more and more because of the pandemic.
This is the 966, episode 25. Richard, Mabruk.
Thank you.
Joining us this week, a special guest from London, Dr. Ghadah Al-Harthi. Ghadah is a senior consultant at Barker Langham, associate director, MA Innovation Management, Central St. Martin's, and a young advisor at Chatham House. Ghadah, thank you so much for joining the 966 virtual Majlis this week.
Of course, it's a pleasure to be here, Lucien. Thank you.
Very exciting. Today we'll be talking about the start of the Saudi International Golf Tournament, the announcement of a new holiday in Saudi Arabia, social entrepreneurship, and much more. Before we begin, of course, it's really cool to see, Richard, our listener and viewership climb. Unlike the latest IPOs on the Saudi stock market this week, it is impossible to be oversubscribed to the 966. So wherever you're getting the 966, you can also get it on YouTube or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever works for you, works for us. So let's jump right into it. Richard, what's your one big thing this week?
Well, we can't not miss the fact that Lucien is, I think, incapable of starting any segment of the 966 without a golf reference.
So you're paying attention to that. Okay.
It's a good thing. Someday we're going to go play Royal Greens. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be awesome. Yes. That's what we're doing all of this for, is to just angle for that one invite to go play there.
Right. Yeah. Well, that and a Lucid. So
yeah, that's right. That's right.
My one big thing. Last week, King Salman issued a royal order announcing that February 22nd will be known as Founding Day. The new annual national holiday, which will be celebrated for the first time next month, has been created to recognize the foundation of the first Saudi state in 1727 by Mohammed bin Saud. Ancestors of the Saudi royal family first founded the city of Diriyah in 1446, but it was Imam Mohammed who first attempted to transform the city-state into a nation-state. According to Dr. Badran Al-Hunayan, Associate Director of Historical Research and Studies at Diriyah Gate Development Authority, which is a huge giga-project, and it's amazing. Quote, many historians have neglected the initial period of Mohammed bin Saud's rule and the preceding era, even though this was the foundational period of the state. Dr. Badran adds, quote, Founding Day is not intended to replace Saudi National Day, which celebrates the unification of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in 1932, but rather to recognize the beginning of the Saudi state's history with a new event that celebrates the deep historical roots of the kingdom. You know, I find this, I'll jump right in, I find this constantly fascinating, the Saudi experiment. It's always worthwhile to remember how young Saudi Arabia is. The founder of the state, Ibn Saud, Abdulaziz bin Abdurrahman, who unified the country in 1932. So unified the country in 1932, died in 1953. So the year he died, Eisenhower was president. That's how recent this country is. It's a young country, and I think it's fascinating what they're doing here. The National Day was just institutionalized in 2005. So now we have the Founding Day, so if you look at it, National Day sort of takes you back to the founding in 1932. So Ibn Saud and his sort of fascinating story of coming over, with 40 of his best friends on camels in January 1902 and taking the fort at Riyadh, to start that unification process. So that takes you back to 32, so maybe 90 plus years. This Founding Day takes you back another 150 years in terms of the Saudi, Al Saud lineage and the origins of the country. And I don't want to get too wonky here, but I sort of went and looked at the difference between country and nation. And, let's give you a quick definition of country. So a country is an area, internationally recognized boundaries and with its own government. Some requirements for sovereignty include permanent residence, a transportation system, an education system, organized economic system, sort of a legalistic definition, right? Now, a nation is a cultural political community that has become conscious of its coherence, unity, and particular interests. Here's the money quote. It shares a common myth of origins and descent, a common history, elements of a distinctive culture, a common territorial association, a sense of group solidarity. So the United States has a common myth of origins and descent. Mm-hmm. And you see with this founding day, the very conscious and directed effort to solidify and organize a common myth of origins and descent. And myth is not derogative here. Myth is the narrative that a country tells about itself. And when you think about Ibn Saud organizing the country and bringing in, the Hijaz and Al-Asa and the Asir and expanding out from the Nejd and the central province and all these tribes and all these different families. And now we see them very consciously moving. Let's move beyond this aggregation and be a Saudi nation. And I just think it's fascinating. I just think, constantly what Saudi Arabia and where they are in the process of this, I just find endlessly interesting.
Ghadah, feel free to jump in here.
Yeah, sure. I was going to say that was a very exciting announcement, Richard. Not so many people are aware that Saudi as a country has existed for almost 300 years. It's a country with a rich, long history, and that announcement says it clearly. There is so much to explore and heritage to see and learn about. It started in Al-Tarif, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, with beautiful architecture, then Diriyah, then Riyadh eventually.
Yeah. That Diriyah development is really amazing, and it historically is fascinating.
And this sort of is going in line with a lot of the investment and the bringing of attention to Saudi Arabia's history before they were a nation, and all of the different peoples and tribes and traders that used the Arabian Peninsula or lived in the Arabian Peninsula, obviously going back to Al-Ula and some of those places. So it's cool. Like there's more awareness now of, Saudi Arabia as being more of an established country, and America is a very young country if you look at, comparatively around the world. But Saudi Arabia is even younger. And so this is a very interesting story. And so I apologize, Richard. So the flag changing, that is not associated with this holiday announcement. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But I think it's consistent with trying to sort of codify your story, to formalize and get everybody on the same page and people invested in the narrative, which I think is important.
I'd say that. I think a lot of Saudis now look at themselves as international citizens in a way. As Saudi is opening up more and more to the world, I definitely feel that especially young people, with the help of technology, obviously, are more connected with what's happening in Saudi, but also abroad. And I would also say, and that goes back to a point that, Lucien, you've mentioned, a lot of Saudis, young Saudis, are starting to travel around the country on weekends to explore the country. And it's actually something that's been happening more and more because of the pandemic and because of the travel ban. So they decided it's a good time now to go travel to Abha in the south, or go to Hayil or Hassa, or so I don't know. I think it's a bit of both, Richard. There's a strong sense of, I am Saudi, this is my country, we have all these amazing places. And then there's a feeling of Saudi opening up with big events, international events like the Diriyah Biennale recently. A lot of international people are coming in, and then the Saudis meeting them, connecting with them. So it's a bit of both, I'd say.
If you look at why they're doing this right now and sort of the background context to all of this, I'm wondering if it's because 70% of Saudi Arabia is under 30, or roughly around there, and because they have all of these international events going on, and Saudis are, like you mentioned, Ghadah, increasingly connected online. And so I wonder if there's an effort from the government here to say, look, this is all great, this is what we're doing, it's all going pretty much according to plan, but we sort of need to connect these young Saudis who are 18 and using social media all the time, connect them to who they are and their place in the world, and sort of give them an identity and remind them of who they really are. In America, our identity is just, we're a new nation, relatively, and we don't really have the same type of national identity in the same way, I would say, the big melting pot. But in Saudi Arabia, it's like, well, what does it mean to be Saudi? What does it mean to be a young Saudi? And how can we remind our youth that this is who they are, this is where they've come from, and, just with all these international events coming in. So I'm wondering if that's part of the impetus here. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, there's an enthusiasm in Saudi for progressive thinking and for meeting the challenges and opportunities that come with the small and large scale projects that are going on, but also and of globalization as well, but with a modern and more authentic self. So they definitely want to maintain that feeling of it's Saudi first, and then after that we're connected to the world more.
I like that word. There's always a tension between tradition and progress, but the key word in there was authentic, which I think Saudi Arabia is becoming, much more confident in determining what is authentic, which you see in they're very proud putting forth of their cultural and their heritage and all these sites that you're seeing, and why you have date festivals, camel festivals. It's the year of Saudi coffee. All these things that are authentic and have value in terms of heritage are very proudly being put forth as things you should come and see, and not only domestically in terms of Saudis, but also international tourists.
Okay, I will jump into my one big thing this week. Shocker! It is the one big golf tournament that happens in Saudi Arabia every year. Begins today, February 3rd. The Saudi International at the Royal Greens Golf Club at King Abdullah Economic City is where some of the biggest stars in the sport, like Dustin Johnson, Bryson DeChambeau, are playing for a lion's share of the whopping $5 million purse for the event. 20 of the top 50 players in the world are there right now, and pretty much all had to get an exemption from the PGA Tour to play in Saudi Arabia this week.
Or the European Tour.
That's right. Yeah. At the Asian Tour, is it now? It's now the Asian Tour.
It is now. Yeah.
The tournament itself has the golf world's attention, but it is Saudi Arabia's wider golf ambitions that have more than just the sport's diehard fans tuning in. Greg Norman, the Shark, who is almost in a sort of man of the hour role right now, is again at the Saudi International pushing his and the PIF's vision to grow the game of golf internationally. And at a press conference this week, Norman said the PIF and Live Golf is increasing its annual investment in a series of 10 Asian Tour events from $200 million to $300 million. What's $100 million? Those events, called the International Series, will be played in Thailand, England, Korea, Vietnam, the Middle East, China, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Norman said that was just the start. I bring this up, Richard and Ghadah, mostly to wonder aloud who specifically does not want this to happen other than the PGA. And I think as we see these plans sort of get more and more attention, we're understanding that they sort of benefit 99% of the world right now. I mean, it's like all of the players would get paid more. All of us would get more golf to watch. It gives us new tournaments and events, new backdrops, more courses from around the world to potentially see that we would never see. Gives us a special separate offering than the FedEx Cup and other tours. And I really do just think it will grow the game of golf. And as I mentioned, for the players, it's a lot more money. And I think the one concern somebody might have about what's happening with the Saudi-backed moves in the golf space is, what will happen to the traditional golf tournaments and like the way the golf world works now. But I sort of think, and Richard, I'd love your opinion on this, the Masters will continue to be the tradition unlike any other. The US Open and British Open, big annual events won't really change. So I just see this as a big way to expand the sport. Anyway, I have been on my soapbox about this on almost every episode, so I apologize for those of you who are not interested. But one more factoid that I discovered this week in researching this, the company name is pronounced with a short I, as in live large. Yeah. Did you see this, Richard? But it also may be read as the Roman numeral for 54, a score one could get by shooting a birdie on every hole on a standard par 72 course like Augusta National. That is next level branding, which I think is really, really cool. Anyway, the Saudi International this week, big tournament. The course looks amazing. So all eyes from the golf world are there right now.
Yeah, it's it's really interesting to watch this, and you're right. Who would be, in terms of an audience, in terms of consumers of watching golf, who would be against this? You can see why the PGA is against it, because, as you point out, if you're talking about the majors, the Masters, the U.S. Open, those sorts of things, there's not going to be a diminishment of participation in those events. But if you're talking about the Pebble Beach AT&T, which is ongoing now, you've got 21 of the top 50 players not there. They're in Saudi Arabia. And so from the PGA's perspective, I understand their angst. But as we've said before, I see them eventually all sort of meeting. The Saudi initiative is pulling the PGA towards them, and that is more international tournaments, higher purses, smaller fields of better-known golfers. And you've already seen that with the PGA when they combine with what was a European tour, but is now the Dubai Ports Tour, DP Tour, to do exactly that, give more marquee, international tournaments. And Greg Norman's point is, going all the way back when he was number one in the world, obviously he's an Aussie, he's saying, you don't understand, Americans, you don't understand the attraction of these international players, the Gary players, the Seve Ballesteros, all these guys. They have tremendous attraction, and they should be, we should take advantage of that. They should be rewarded for that, and they should be allowed to help build the game of golf. So I think it's going actually towards the Saudi way, but there's going to be, PGA is going to fight it all the way, because, in large part because these lesser tournaments, by lesser I mean non-major tournaments, they're really going to get pinged. If this is allowed to get momentum.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Richard. It sure looks like that. I'm sure you saw this morning, Phil Mickelson came out with some of the strongest words yet about what Saudi Arabia is doing, essentially saying they've already changed the PGA, like, changes have already happened to how much we're getting paid, some changes to the media rights. So even if the Saudi effort just folds up shop right now, the changes that it's enacted on the PGA were already good.
Yeah, Phil Mickelson has just pocketed $8 million of this new program, new $40 million program, player impact program that the PGA started to pay those players who have a high profile and grow the game. And Phil obviously is a spokesman and someone who's well known, and he came in number one. He gets $8 million of that $40 million, but that $40 million is distributed on down the line to other players who help grow the game. So again, this is where PGA is trying to adapt to a new world that is being pushed right now by Saudi.
Farada, do you play golf?
No, unfortunately. I've tried it once before. I'm not sure if it's my game, but actually. What I want to say is that there's a lot of focus on sports, as you know, in Saudi, and the goal is to boost community involvement in sports to 40% by 2030. In fact, Saudi female participation shot up by 150% since 2015. And now, back to golf, the kingdom is aiming to have up to 27,000 registered golfers to ensure that, and also to ensure that over 1 million Saudis at least actively try golf once. And another piece of information, did you know that the first golf course was built in Dhahran in the Eastern Province in the 1940s by Aramco employees? Then the Saudi Golf Federation was founded in 1999.
Yes, that course, I guess they would, pour, oil. The greens were oil greens, sand that had been packed down with oil, and everyone carried around their own little, swatch of AstroTurf to hit off of. Yeah, it is fascinating. The other thing, in terms of sports federations, they've just massively expanded the number of sports that are being supported and encouraged. I think it's gone from 33 sports federations to 93, and things right now there's a cycling, the Saudi tour, the cycling tour is going on in Al-Ula. While Lucien is a golf geek, I'm a Dakar rally geek. That just finished, which is amazing. And by the way, the videos of that was amazing. But on our daily newsletter, the review, we've been including some videos the last couple of days of the Saudi tour. So the biking and so segments, and that's really cool to watch too. it's a lot of fun to see.
Yeah, and all of this is happening in the golf space without really any or very few golf courses in Saudi Arabia. There are like a handful right now, but there are a lot more coming. So more golf courses means more access, and more access means more eventual interest, which is really cool. I believe that Jack Nicklaus is building one at Qiddiya, which looks dope. Richard will have to put that on our hit list as well.
Qiddiya is lagging. Qiddiya is lagging a little bit, but it will be great when it gets there. But Ghadah, your point is really well made, because we always make the distinction here is that Saudi Arabia, what hits the front page are these glitzy things like the Saudi International or the purchase of Newcastle, these things. But what's going on behind the scenes domestically is really strong efforts to link these things, these sort of marquee investments or events, with increased Saudi participation. So one of the very cool things coming out of this Saudi International is there's going to be a documentary of the two Saudi pro golfers who are participating in the Saudi International, and it's going to be I think a 6-segment documentary of their experience of training up for it, and then going to it, and then behind the ropes So it'll be taking this marquee event, which is controversial and brings in huge stars, and it'll be segmenting and say, all right, but look at, these are our Saudi boys. Our community have worked hard to be able to qualify and participate in this, and look how exciting golf is, and don't you want to be part of this? So it's part of a bigger picture, which we try and re-emphasize whenever we talk about these things.
Exactly. I always encourage people to look at what's happening on the micro level. And going back to sports, and what's amazing is that the Ministry of Sports is following a start them young approach. So whenever they look at a sport, they develop training programs for children to join, or camps. And they're working with the Ministry of Education on this, actually. So watch this space.
And we had a really great interview on the 966 with Lena Al-Mayena about just the development of what she's doing in Jeddah and Riyadh and beyond, and how she did it, how she started the business. And it was a really cool glimpse into how this really started about, just under 2 decades ago. And it's really hitting its stride right now. But great interview. Check that out on our YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast. But that was fantastic.
It was a good one. I heard that one.
Oh, thank you.
Just a quick, as we close that up, if we're closing that up, sure. You can see the Saudi International Thursday, Friday. It's on the Golf Channel. Saturday, Sunday, it's on the Golf Channel, and I guess you can stream it on if you have an NBC Sports app. So if you want to check it out, and that Royal Greens course is gorgeous, and obviously they're going to have a lot of competition with a lot of good golfers. One more thing,
sure, please. I'll talk about golf all day.
Majid Al Sarur, the CEO of Golf Saudi, really should come on and talk to us about. Come on to the 966, please.
Yes.
CEO of Golf Saudi.
He's probably busy right now and until Monday, and then after Monday, we know that he has 364 days.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on to the 966. So,
except I think he's going on the board of Newcastle too. So anyway, he's a busy man, I'm sure.
If you guys are ready, we'll switch up here and talk about social entrepreneurship in Saudi Arabia and the social enterprise sector. We talk a lot on the show about the importance of entrepreneurship in general for Saudi Arabia and its Vision 2030, but there's clear progress in that. The kingdom's IPO market is heating up. Saudi Arabia is climbing up international entrepreneurship indices. The Global Entrepreneurship Monitor report 2020-21 said the kingdom ranks 7th in entrepreneurship, and a whopping 9 out of 10 asked said it was easy to start a business in Saudi Arabia. So what about social entrepreneurship? This sector sits between philanthropy and private enterprise, using commercial methods to address social needs in innovative, financially sustainable ways. I think, Ghadah, you are pretty much the expert on this, so I'd like to kick it over to you. Some of the questions we'd like to get at today are, does Saudi Arabia now have a budding group of social entrepreneurs looking to bring change? And if so, are these social entrepreneurs and future social entrepreneurs seeing support from the government and others?
Well, thank you, Lucien. Yes, I actually spent about 4 or 5 years researching social entrepreneurship in Saudi, and I've conducted countless interviews, collected data on this, and I've written a piece recently for the Atlantic Council on social entrepreneurship in Saudi. I think I'd like to start by saying first, what is social entrepreneurship? So it has played a big role in solving social and environmental issues that countries face today, and more so during the pandemic. And a social entrepreneur usually develops a business solution or initiative for social and environmental problems. So it's driven by these pragmatic, innovative visionaries and their network. That's an important thing, which I'll go back to later. And it's built on the concept that a business should serve the interest of all society rather than simply the shareholders. And to be honest, if you ask for a clearer definition, then it would be difficult because it depends on the context and on the country. So it's a fluid and contested concept. Simply what happens is a social entrepreneur tackles real issues with business tools. And once profit is made, that profit would be reinvested in similar ways in order to tackle the same problem or a similar one. The most famous example is, and that's an international example, is Muhammad Yunus. He's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and he founded the Grameen Bank and pioneered the concept of a microcredit and microfinance. And the bank gives out loans to entrepreneurs who do not qualify for traditional bank loans, mostly women, and it started in Bangladesh. So yeah, I spent 4 years mapping out the social entrepreneurship ecosystem and network in Saudi for my PhD research. Right now, I was looking at the data on this. The most recent one came up from Munshaat, which is the Small and Medium General Authority in Saudi, the Small and Medium Enterprise General Authority in Saudi. And we have about 3,000 social enterprises as of 2018, though, as of 2018. So probably there's more now.
And that was an interesting report by Munshaat. And one of the things it said was, in terms of the nascent nature of social entrepreneurship, it was saying that in Canada, for example, there's 50 not-for-profit social organizations for every 10,000 people. In the U.S., there's 200 in France. Again, 200 not-for-profit social organizations per 10,000 people. Currently in Saudi Arabia, there's one not-for-profit social organization per 10,000 people. And as you say, it's a relatively new thing.
It is, but I'll have to be honest, Richard, that I think the numbers you're seeing, this low level of social entrepreneurial activity that may appear in reports, is just because there isn't enough data on this. And a lot of people are social entrepreneurs or have founded social enterprises, and they just don't realize it yet. And I felt that from the interviews that I did. And I think, in the same report for Munshaat, they were saying that they're hoping that by 2030, social enterprises would be able to create at least 250,000 job opportunities for Saudis. So there is potential there.
In what sectors, from your research and your experience, what sectors seem to be the most active?
I would say women empowerment. Or women, let's say, women finding jobs. Yeah, women empowerment, helping them find jobs. So, and a very important example is Glow Work. It was founded by a social entrepreneur who was a Shoka fellow, Khalid Al-Khudair. And it is essentially a recruitment agency. And with the blessing and backing of Saudi authorities, Glow Work has helped over 10,000 of women find jobs in fields like design, HR, sales. And at first, Glow Work also encouraged companies to set up arrangements where women can work from home. By 2019, more than 10,000 women have also attended Glowworks workshops. And these workshops, they used to help them and give them tips about how to better market your skills and how to write your resume. So that's the type of support that they provided.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, and I could very well be, Glowwork was actually established before Vision 2030 in 2016, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been around for a little bit. It's the original.
Yes. And this is when I think I should mention the network of social entrepreneurs. So there are different capitals you need when you start a business, right? You've got social capital, human capital, financial capital. But I think in the case of social entrepreneurship in Saudi, the most important was the social capital. And I've identified 5 main actors. The first one is the government, obviously. Munshaat, let's say. And then we also have the global foundations, such as, the global foundations, that would be Ashoka and Acumen. who have so far sponsored about 7 fellows. Then we have the local foundations like King Khalid Foundation or MISC Foundation. Then we have the private sector, which includes mostly family businesses such as Rajhi, Subai, Jamil. And then finally, you've got the intermediaries. So it's law firms who may want to give pro bono advice to the social entrepreneurs. And if you have access to them, those 5 actors, then you probably can survive in an environment where there might not be policies or regulations supporting the type of business you have.
And it seems sort of like social enterprises could have a very key role in Vision 2030. And I don't know how, but it just seems like they're sort of ideal in that they, just like we talked about, they would provide both economic development and social benefit, a better quality of life. So it seems like the government, if they're not now, will soon be emphasizing this area. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very optimistic, especially with the establishment of the NCNP, the National Center for the Nonprofit Sector. And there's certainly a higher level of awareness of the contribution that social enterprises make. And I've been hearing that they've been conducting research into this, meeting with social entrepreneurs, and probably we will hear some more positive announcements soon that you'll need to cover on your podcast.
I think we will.
Well, we did cover the establishment of the nonprofit city. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I know that MISC was involved creating the city, but it is yet unclear to me. I also tried to read about it recently, and it is a little unclear to me whether it would include social enterprises or not. It could be just, about creating a more thriving charity sector.
Talk a little bit about these private initiatives. For example, the Jamil, they've always been very active in this area. You mentioned Al-Raji and Al-Subai.
Yes.
They're involved in social entrepreneurship. In what ways?
Mostly funding, I would say. Mostly funding them. Sometimes they don't have very active programs where it says, "Oh, if you're a social entrepreneur, come to us." But it's more like if you have an idea, you'd go to them, and they might be more excited to fund you because they see it's not only about the financial benefits that you will get or they'll get, but also it will support society in a way, hopefully. So there's that, and there have been a lot of recent initiatives, more and more initiatives by the government and by local foundations to support social entrepreneurs in different ways.
And the whole idea of corporate social responsibility, CSR, is something that's taken hold in Saudi Arabia over the last decade. It wasn't a habit, prior to a recent period, and now every corporation has somebody in charge of their CSR, and hopefully this feeds into supporting social entrepreneurship and that sort of thing.
I mean, there are different types of social entrepreneurship. Again, this goes back to the definition. So there's corporate social entrepreneurship. But the idea is when you start that business, the main reason you're doing it is to solve a specific issue or to produce a product you believe will help society. And usually in a business, it's not that. It's about making profit.
So where do the arts fall into this?
Ooh, okay. It's funny you mentioned it because what I wanted to do when I started my PhD, I actually worked with a social enterprise here in the UK. And that social enterprise was sort of a sister company to a gallery, and which inspired, my research proposal and the reason I wanted to do a PhD. And I thought, what? I would love to do a PhD on social enterprises that support the creative industry in Saudi. But keep in mind, that was back in 2014, 2015. And the first finding of my research was that there are no social enterprises supporting the creatives, or at least I failed in finding them. Maybe there were one or two, but I couldn't find any. And I had to then, pivot my focus a little bit in my research and look at other types of social enterprises, which was still rewarding to do.
So it's sort of, but it seems to me that there's just, and I'm foreshadowing here because one of our Yallah items is about the art scene in Saudi Arabia, and we've done a number of segments on the Biennale, on Hayya Jamil, and on just the extraordinary number of things going on in terms of promoting arts and creativity. Of course, in the Red Sea Film Festival. Is this social entrepreneurship? What is this?
No, I wouldn't say, at least I wouldn't classify it as social entrepreneurship, because it needs to be, it needs to have a specific business model. You need to be making profit. You need to be clear on what's your impact, and then on how you will use that profit again in your business to increase that impact. So I wouldn't call it. They're great, but they wouldn't be classified as social enterprises.
Ghadah, can we talk a little bit about your time working with Roads of Arabia and the just amazing Edge of Arabia, the sort of just that just sounds really interesting, and I think everybody would like to hear about it.
By the way, Roads of Arabia was really cool too, and that was the first time. This was way back.
Like a decade ago, right?
Yeah, at least. Yeah. But this was the first sort of foray into pre-Islamic. Saudi Arabia had sort of shied away from anything, prior to the Prophet in his time, and this was an interesting for that reason. I mean, because there's all sorts of fascinating pre-Islamic historical things in Saudi Arabia. But anyway, I digress, which I'm prone to do. Sorry, Ghadah.
No, it's all right, Richard. So I worked with Edge of Arabia Gallery. It was an interesting time because the first time I encountered contemporary art from Saudi was for an exhibition they had here in Brick Lane in London. And that was back in 2012. And I saw it and I just had a feeling that I should be involved. I want to know more about this. And so I went to the gallery. It was based in Battersea. And I worked with them for a while, and it showcased, beautiful artwork by emerging young Saudi artists. Not all of them were young, but they were all very passionate, and had, some of them are actually now presenting their work in the Saudi Design Festival and the Diriyah Biennale. So it's amazing to look at their journey, where it was, let's say 10 years ago, they were showing their work only in London, and now they have the opportunity to, show it in Saudi and the heart of Riyadh, which is beautiful. I think I like that idea very much of the artwork going to the US and then traveling all around, because I think, Richard, the notion that seeing is believing. You can hear about contemporary art from Saudi Arabia day and night. You can even see it on your social media. But if you actually see the piece in front of you, meet the artist, it's something completely different. And this is also why I feel like I'd like more and more people to come to Saudi and see it, because you can listen to this amazing podcast, the episodes that you have, but definitely and read about everything, but definitely it's worth a visit and seeing what's happening on the ground.
We've worked for many years with a group called for the Committee for International Trade, which is part of the now Federation of Saudi Chambers. The group, CIT, Committee for International Trade, was established in the 80s. Nonprofit, private sector, men and women, really capable, competent professionals, based on exactly what you're saying. And they would send groups, delegations themselves, and that's just for that reason, because being able to meet people, seeing is believing, because most Americans may hear it, but they don't believe it. So that firsthand ability to engage and interact in a firsthand basis is really, really helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think also that links to the goals of the scholarship program.
Right.
So that was one of the reasons they also encouraged people to apply for it and to spend a period abroad to study and to meet people and introduce them to Saudi and Saudi culture. And I think the results of that program were very successful. As far as
that was a brilliant program, and it's evolving now, and not the same numbers, but it's more directed in terms of what educational needs. But that was an outstanding program. And we sometimes refer to it, obviously as an educational initiative, it's a social initiative, but it's also a commercial initiative. I mean, it's a great way to establish ties. I mean, because Saudis who come study are going to have an affinity group that are Americans. They're going to like the same things. They're going to find opportunities to work together, do things together. Just an outstanding initiative.
Exactly. I'm going back to social entrepreneurship now, but one of the social entrepreneurs, Shahid, she went on a fellowship, an Acumen fellowship, and then she spent a few months in New York attending that program, and she connected with an American there, and later they established their social enterprise together, which was great. So yeah, a lot of opportunities come from that sort of exchange of knowledge.
Ghadah, we had Fahad Nasser, who's spokesman for the Saudi embassy, on the program a few weeks ago. And one of the things that he emphasized was how different Saudi Arabia is now than it was a few days ago, a few weeks ago, a few months ago. It's just constantly changing. You travel to Saudi Arabia a lot. Could you sort of talk about that and how you see it through your eyes changing every time you go, and just some kind of cool experiences that you see visiting your home country and seeing it change every time?
Oh, of course. I think there are hundreds of large and small scale projects in the works, and they're happening all over the country. Always, you expect rapid progress, new museums and art spaces, and an exciting international events taking place there. In fact, I feel like I'm missing out if I don't go back there every month. So, yeah, obviously the seasons are a very popular thing. And even the sites that are not fully activated, let's say like Diriyah, there are still some spots that you can go and visit. And domestic tourism, if you travel around Saudi now, it's a completely different experience, especially for women. It's you're more comfortable. You can drive yourself around. And you can there's more acceptance for you to do that. And also for international travelers, I conducted some research on Al-Ula and the entrepreneurial families of Al-Ula. And I went around and I interviewed family members who established their own businesses, and they were welcoming international tourists into their farms, into their homes. And I met this very old grandmother, and she was 80 years old, and she was telling me about how she met two Colombians who came to their home with her son, who was their tour guide, and how she was sharing, the traditional Saudi food with them. Obviously, she wasn't able to communicate with them because she doesn't speak English or a language that was possible for them to use to communicate. But her son did all the translation, and so examples like this, you find it all around Saudi, and it's great. It's not only about the Saudis also enjoying the country, but making use of the opportunities that they're having, business opportunities that they're having now.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah, really, really cool. So you've visited Al-Ula recently since some of the developments going on there, and
I did, and it was partly, we were going with a group of friends, but also to conduct research, and it was an amazing experience. We went camping, we went sightseeing, and I absolutely loved it. Definitely recommend going there, and they seem to be having a special new event every month, and it changes. It's completely different every month. And you see beautiful art pieces there, installations, experiences. So yeah, I loved it. And I think I was there last year, but end of 2019, I think. Even during the pandemic, by the way, it was possible to travel around the country, not leave it, but it was possible to travel around. And I think it was a great thing to do. Really enjoyed it.
By the way, Lucien, that's the third thing we need to do. One is, go play Royal Greens. 2 is, get that lucid. And 3 is to take that extended road trip, and go out to the Jeddah area, start there, go see Red Sea development, go see Al-Ula, go up the coast, and go all the way up to Neom, and just see all that's going on out there.
I'm down. I'm definitely down for that.
Yeah,
Desert
yeah.
X Al Ula is going on right now, so there's also a huge art show happening in Al Ula, which is amazing. But this anchors back to what we were talking about earlier in the show. Just there's all this stuff going on that's changing, and it's a country that's changing and progressing so quickly that there sort of needs to be an effort also to formalize and cement its history and its youth, and these Saudis that are seeing all these changes going on, to sort of say, oh, also, like, we have our own traditions here. We have cool contemporary artists coming in from Italy, but we also have our own artists. We have our own industries going on here. So it's really cool to see what's going on. And that was a really cool story.
That's actually one of the neat things about the Red Sea Film Festival, the Art Biennale in Riyadh, or what's going on in Jeddah, is there are so many Saudi and regional creatives involved in this, and they're really building up a culture, and that culture has existed. These artists have been there. They're being enabled now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, Richard. I think it's always been there under the surface, and now it's finally appearing, which is beautiful.
Right.
Let's move on to Yallah, if you guys are ready. Before we do that, I just want to mention that if you want to listen to this whole podcast, you can do that on wherever you get your podcasts, on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. You can listen to the whole podcast there, but we break down each of our topics into segments, and they go onto YouTube. So in addition to seeing all of our beautiful faces on YouTube, you can also get more of a rich experience there and just watch part of the segments or part of the episodes that you want to watch there. So you don't have to listen to the whole thing if you don't want to. But of course, we encourage that. And Ghadah, thank you again for joining us this week. This has been awesome. So I think we should proceed now to the big finish. Yallah. Richard, do you want to kick us off?
Saudi in a minute, and rather jump in wherever you want or not. First one, according to Bloomberg's recently released COVID resilience ranking, Saudi Arabia ranks second among countries, quote, best coexisting with COVID-19 pandemic. The top 5 countries are UAE, Saudi Arabia, Finland, Turkey, and Singapore.
I noticed the UK and the United States are not in the top 5. That is not a shock at all.
US is 23.
That seems high.
Well, I mean, it's a different proposition. We've talked about this. Saudi Arabia has done a remarkable job, but Saudi Arabia has inbuilt advantages. And so, and they didn't fritter away those advantages. I mean, so that's important. But they should be applauded for what they've done. It's been extraordinary.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing I'd like to add here is that during COVID, the government leveraged 2 decades of continued investment in modern digital infrastructure. So the country's digital capabilities provided a very solid foundation for key aspects of the COVID-19 emergency response. For example, the national portal, Gov.sa, has maintained a very reliable access to over 900 government services, despite a surge in traffic when the curfew was applied nationally. So with business, health, and education, it was business as usual. And I can say that from a personal experience.
They, according to this COVID resilience ranking, the couple of things that play into it. One of them is high rate of inoculation, which Saudi Arabia has achieved. The other is the consistent openness to travel. And Saudi Arabia has been cautious, but it hasn't been draconian. It hasn't just stopped everything in terms of, for a period it did, like everybody, but it's opened up. And that's one reason, according again to the study and the rankings, that their economy, Saudi's economy, has bounced back quite nicely.
Absolutely. Okay, number 2, NEOM is set to issue its first tenders to build a renewable power grid later this year, according to the executive director of NEOM Energy. The first tender packages to be issued will be in the range of 400 megawatts to 800 megawatts. Ultimately, NEOM is planning to install 8 to 10 gigawatts of wind power and 16 to 20 gigawatts of solar power generation. This seems like the real beginning of NEOM to me. The whole thing is built on the idea that it is a future city and it will be run on renewable energy. So to see this announcement, and this is a great find from you, Richard, to see this announcement come into play sort of seems like this is really the beginning of NEOM. I don't know how you guys feel.
For me, and for part of what we're trying to do here, as we know on the 966 and everything with regard to Saudi U.S. Trade Group and our digital media, is trying to unpack things that are going on in Saudi Arabia. And you always see the large glitzy announcements. There's plenty of those. They keep coming. And as we know, Saudi Arabia does not lack for aspiration or ambition, which is notable and commendable. And part of what we want to do is come back and see how implementation is going, because these things will take time. And these things, a lot of things will happen below the surface before you actually see real results. And that's what we want to keep track of. And so, this is 400 megawatts to 800 megawatts. It's just a piddling amount. But the point is they're getting started, and this is the first step in a long journey. But you got to take that first step and the next step and next step. And we'll be watching, but it's encouraging because this is what you want to see.
Ghadah, have you been up to the site where they will be building NEOM?
I have actually. Only once. I traveled all around Tabuk. It was a business trip. But it very cool. You look at the seas, they're turquoise, blue, light blue. You look at the mountains, they're red, brown, and yellow. It's they have beautiful sites up there in NEOM. And I remember that they mentioned they're planning on actually maintaining that natural heritage that they have there and protecting the environment, which is great.
What's cool about it is please, Richard.
No, go ahead, Lucien.
I was going to say what's cool about that is that when NEOM is done and it's a thriving city, you will remember what it looked like when nothing was there, which is kind of an experience that I will never have to see a place before a city is built there. That's really cool.
Unless we make this trip.
Yes, but we got to go soon because they're putting a power grid in there, and that might be the end of that. So
as a Saudi, Ghadah, is this exciting?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's this futuristic city, and you just think about, the resources they're putting into this. I have some cousins who work there, some cousins who are on a scholarship to study, a NEOM scholarship. So I can, and they're telling me about what's happening there, and all the great projects that they have planned and programs. So it will take time. Like you said, Richard, it will take time. And especially with a project like NEOM, a long time for us to actually see it materialize. But I'm optimistic. Yeah.
So when you went there, did you just go by, did you drive there? Did you go in a boat and did you stay, or did you just go see it and then?
I stayed there actually. I stayed there for about a week. I wasn't the one driving just because I'm familiar with the roads there. So I had someone with me who were local.
Good idea.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to get lost there because sometimes you can't find signal, and we were going around looking at some sites, and you don't want to get lost there alone. And the people there are super friendly. If you ask for directions, if you need to ask for directions, if you just want to talk to them, they're very eager to share all the information they have about what's happening here, all the developments, and they themselves, the locals, are very integrated into the development plans. And they feel that, they're sort of heroes of their own city, their own towns, which is beautiful to see. So I definitely encourage you guys to go there soon.
Interesting.
I'm trying to think of a situation in which a city was built with renewable energy as the power source, as sort of the choice. I mean, Richard, you were talking in a previous episode about how NEOM not just has really great, like many places in Saudi Arabia, access to the potential for solar energy, but also in the evening, that wind power, it's very windy there in the evening. So there's an opportunity there. And it's interesting because NEOM is obviously a beautiful place to build a city, but part of the decision making going into it was, hey, look, this place could actually be powered by renewable energy. Just interesting to think about that. I mean, historically, it's probably not happened very often, if at all.
That was Adam Szymanski, former head of CAPSOC.
That's right.
He was talking about how the tremendous renewable resources there between solar during the day and wind at night. And we also did an episode, though, on the types of giga projects, and NEOM, along with Red Sea Development and Amala, which is now part of the Red Sea Development. These greenfield giga projects where you can come in and you sort of, you basically color what you see in your mind and create these ambitious and cutting edge realities, if you can get it to be a reality. And I think Red Sea Development, they're making real progress, but NEOM, they're making some progress. But it's really exciting to see when you see a green field like this, blank slate, and come in and just have these enormous ambitions and the finances to take a shot at it, and it's just exciting to watch. Number 3, Red Sea Farms, which is backed by investors from Saudi Arabia and the UAE, is expanding into the U.S. through its new agricultural technology that tackles food security problems by helping countries to grow crops in areas with scarce water resources. The University of Arizona's College of Agriculture and Life Sciences will evaluate the company's latest technology with the aim of introducing it into the world's largest economy.
Is the Red Sea Farms, are they backed by the PIF? I don't know.
No, I think you think at the current situation today, it's safe to say yes.
It's safe to say yes.
Yeah. I think that I'm not sure, and we should answer that. I thought this was interesting because here it is. This is what last week we talked about the increase in non-oil exports, and how that's what Saudi Arabia, that's a big part of Vision 2030, and that's an important process. Exporting technology, and in this case, Red Sea Farms uses seawater to offset, water usage, salt water, and they have technology. Exporting technology again. Saudi Arabia would love to become a center of technological expertise in carbon capture and hydrogen, but here we are. So I just thought it was interesting, and I'm sure it's a nice little touchstone if you're looking at progress within Saudi Arabia that might be exportable.
Agreed. Okay, number 4, the 2021 Riyadh season, which was launched on October 20th, has attracted over 10 million visitors and 1 million tourists in roughly 100 days. Wow. The 5-month season lasts until March 22nd. That is a lot of people. So 9 million visitors, well, I guess 10 million visitors, but 1 million were tourists. So almost a third of all Saudis have been to the 2021 Riyadh season. That is astonishing. And the photos online of it look really, really cool. I mean, all these different events together, but just awesome. I'm sure, Ghadah, you would like to go. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but it just looks really, really cool.
It is, and it's obvious that tourism and entertainment are vital aspects in achieving many of the 2030 goals, right? Like attract investments, increase revenues, create job opportunities for citizens. I mean, if it's not only about the seasons, if we're looking for ecotourism and responsible tourism, there is the Red Sea Project, health and well-being, we've got Amala, technology and business, that's NEOM, heritage and culture, you have Dir'iyyan al-Ula, so there is something for everyone.
We did a segment on this, and there's an insane number of events going on, something like 75 hours a day of programming, and these are, there may be more than that, but and everyone we speak to that has been to it, it's a happening place. It's a must see if you get there, and people are coming from Jeddah and elsewhere to come be part of Riyadh season. It's 5 months long. It's just a phenomenon.
Yeah.
If you go onto Instagram and look up Riyadh season, all of these Saudi creators, like really, really good photographers, are taking photos of Riyadh season and videos and everything else. It's really a cool little rabbit hole to go down. It's very cool to explore. So check that out. Very interesting.
Number 5, the Saudi Shura Council unanimously approved on Monday a draft amendment to the flag, emblem, and national anthem system. The proposed changes aim to more clearly define the proper uses of the state emblem, raise awareness about the importance of the flag and anthem, and protect the flag from infringement or neglect.
Unfortunately, these changes will not be in place for the Saudi Winter Olympic team. And I saw Princess Rima bint Bandar is actually in China now for the games, but this is cool. This will probably not be, Richard, like the recent rebrand of the Washington football team. I think this will be widely embraced, and I'll be interested to see what this looks like. We just, like we mentioned earlier, we just had the sort of news story, but we don't really know much about what will happen here.
And I think it's in keeping with the founding day, the one big thing we did today, in the sense of just sort of growing the Saudi identity and deepening it, and then in this case, formalizing in some way, and and protecting the flag and that sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of this. But I think it's part and parcel of the larger effort to let's keep moving this Saudi identity forward. Let's keep growing it, and make sure we have in all these touchstones like the flag and the anthem in order.
Mm-hmm. Number 6, and our final item in Yallah today. If you have not noticed how fast Saudi Arabia's art scene is moving, we recommend Rahil Ayman's. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that.
That's right. I made you do this one. Sorry.
Recent article for Art Forum, Stepping Stones, the Saudi scene takes the world stage. It's a terrific report on the current state of the Jeddah and Riyadh art scenes. It really is. Check it out. We have it on our website, sustg.com. But it's just a really sort of great perspective on what's going on in the Jeddah and Riyadh art scenes right now.
Lots of good pictures too. And I added it because when I read it, and I sort of kept going and going, and she goes from Jeddah, she travels from Jeddah and goes to Riyadh, and she has opinions on all of it. She has opinions on, exhibits and displays and shows and that sort of thing. And that's sort of what struck me. This was a long article, detailed, about a variety of art exhibits and shows going on in Saudi Arabia in multiple cities. And I just thought it was fascinating. It didn't happen 5 years ago.
Really, and I think it really did paint what is happening right now, which is they're activating amazing sites, they're attracting talents, international talent, and they're also creating spectacular events. That was an amazing article.
Yeah.
Richard and Radha, khalas. Let's put a bow on it with that.
Yes.
Thank you all for tuning in. We will be back next week. Radha, thank you so much for joining us from London and your time. Really great conversation. We hope you join us again.
Of course. Thank you. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.